In Palestine, the Israeli onslaught continues in Gaza, where 70 Palestinians were killed after an artillery attack in Al-Maghazi refugee camp. In Panama, the Canadian mining company First Quantum warns that it will defend its investment in the country. And in Latin America, heads of states and governments sent Christmas messages expressing their commitments and wishes for their peoples and the region. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the TeleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. At least 70 Palestinians were killed after an artillery attack by the Israeli occupation forces in Al-Maghazi refugee camp. The bodies were transferred to Al-Aqsa Martyrs Hospital. Similarly, several critically wounded from airstrikes were also received at this medical center, according to health officials. A spokesman for the Gaza Health Ministry reported that Israel bombed the main roads to prevent the passage of ambulances and emergency personnel, and said that the death toll could rise due to the severity of the injuries. Over 23 Palestinians were killed by the Israeli occupation forces east of Khan Yunis, and more lifeless bodies are reported to be under rubble at the various airstrikes. The Tel Aviv regime continues to attack civilian objectives also in the western Khan Yunis area, in the Rafah border crossing, and all of northern Gaza. After 80 days of the intensification of the Israeli siege on Palestinian territory, the people of the Gaza Strip resist in the face of a growing humanitarian crisis in the territory. And while the whole world is celebrating Christmas, the Palestinian residents of Gaza are living a completely different situation in which many are dying due to the constant Israeli bombardment. Our correspondent, Noor Harasin, has the details.
While the whole world is celebrating holidays now, Palestinians are being massacred in Gaza. The Israeli warplanes committed a massacre when attacking a whole neighborhood inside the Al-Maghazi refugee camp, killing 85 people, mostly women and children, while more than 20 people are still under the rubble and more than 100 were reported injured. I just want to show you the situation here inside the Al-Aqsa Martyrs Hospital. As you can see, the floors are filled with body bags, white body bags, and actually here is another fact. Inside every bag there is 1, 2, or even 3 bodies of people that were killed due to the lack even of body bags, and because many bodies arrived to the hospitals in pieces. And this is actually one whole family that you are seeing now, and going farther you will see more bodies, more people, but due to the big amount of family members, and also we have journalists trying to capture these very significant moments. I mean, while the whole world is celebrating, and here Palestinians are grieving their loved ones, and according to Palestinian medical sources here inside the hospital, they failed to save the lives of so many who came with serious injuries after the Al-Maghazi refugee camp attack due to the lack of medicine and medical supplies. I was there and we actually saw doctors stranded. They did not know what to do and how to help the people who were injured. Noor Harasin, TeleSUR, Gaza.
In Palestine, Gaza residents continue to be victimized by the Israeli occupying army. Over the weekend, a group of Palestinians was released by Israeli forces after being detained for some 20 days. Several of them were taken to Gaza hospital to be thoroughly examined and treated after spending days without food, tied up with iron chains, exhibiting deep wounds. Still, there are more than Palestinians being held hostage by the Israeli army, who denies them food, water, and other necessities. The occupying forces only aim to exterminate the Palestinians.
Estábamos durmiendo en la casa.
We were sleeping in the house. We woke up in the morning and suddenly we saw the Jews at our door. They took us by force from Zeytun to a place we don't know. They left us 2 days without food and then they took us to another place. We don't know where We were blindfolded. There was no food or water. We were hungry and thirsty. We had to ask permission to pray, and when they saw us praying, they told us to pray with our eyes. I could not disinfect my wounds. I could only change the dressing every 6 days. This was my situation. Now we only want the rest to be released because I swear to God we have gone through a lot of suffering, and the others who stayed behind are also suffering. Every time I look up, they shoot at me and told me to keep my head down. If I say anything, they told me to shut up. It was a great suffering. The word suffering doesn't begin to cover it. We had spent 20 days with our hands tied up with iron chains. Look how my hand is because of the nerves. I cannot lift it for having been for so long with my hands chained behind my back.
The government of Palestine announced during Christmas Eve the cancellation of the festivities in the city of Belém. Mayor Hannah Hanania decided to cancel the Christmas celebration this year as inappropriate given the moment the Gaza Strip is facing with the Israeli attacks. She also expressed that the birth of Jesus is a message of hope for the children of the world and cannot be celebrated when thousands of children are being killed in Gaza. Hanania added that about 1,000 citizens of Belém are affected by the escalation of violence perpetrated by Israel. The president of Iran, Said Ebrahim Raisi, criticized certain countries that support Israel's crimes and called on the world at Christmas to reject these actions. The Iranian leader said in his statements that some leaders who claim to follow the Christian path also support Israel's criminal actions against Gaza. He reminded these leaders that the Zionist aggression has violated the rights of the Palestinian nation and has not hesitated to attack Muslims, Christians, and Baptists in their mosques and churches in the besieged Strip. The Persian president accused the governments of certain Western countries as fundamental allies of the genocide against the Palestinian enclave. And on Sunday, thousands of Moroccans took to the streets of Rabat in supporting Gaza. The organizers of this mobilization point out that their aim was to raise awareness about the Palestinians in order to move on to other phases of support, to another dynamic that will leave a greater impact than the demonstration of support. In this sense, the demonstration also demanded the end of the normalization between Morocco and the Tel Aviv regime. On the other hand, Boubacar El-Bonkari, coordinator of the Moroccan Front for the Support of Palestine, reiterated his support for the Palestinian cause and rejected the policy of exclusion that the Israeli occupation forces are imposing in Gaza.
All these demonstrations and marches organized worldwide, and especially this one on Morocco, aims to raise awareness of the situation in Palestine, but we need to move on to another stage of support, to another dynamic that will leave more of an impact than the support march, and to stop this Holocaust and genocide against the Palestinian people. Thousands of Moroccans have been out on the streets since October 7 to say one word, which is this: the Moroccan people want to abolish normalization with Israel. The Moroccan people have been demonstrating since October 7 with this slogan. We wonder what the Moroccan state is waiting for today to abolish the normalization agreements. Is it waiting for Gaza and the whole of Palestine to be completely annihilated? Or what is it waiting for?
Let's take now a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at TeleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. All the stories are coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back from the south. In the Czech Republic, strong winds and snowfall caused a collapse in the transportation and power supply in several regions. According to local media, the snowfall mainly affected the regions of South Bohemia, South Moravia, Zlín, and Vysočina. Authorities confirmed that falling branches and snow accumulation were the main cause of the power line failures. This weather anomaly caused power outages in 41,000 localities in the aforementioned regions. Meanwhile, firefighters and maintenance crews are working to clear the transportation routes obstructed by the heavy snowfalls that also caused the cancellation of several flights on Friday, December 22nd. On Sunday, local media reported that in India, at least 35 people lost their lives and more than 85,000 people were displaced by the floods in the south of the country. The figures were released by the authorities after the search and rescue operations were concluded, in which about 50,000 people were rescued from the flooded areas who are currently in shelters receiving medical attention. In turn, local government assured its efforts are now focused on restoring basic services to the Tamil Nadu region and villages in the affected state. In this sense, they also noted they are working on restoring rail connectivity in the area. The Chinese government urged authorities in the northwest part of the country to guarantee living conditions for the victims of the recent earthquake. Chinese Premier Li Qian toured disaster areas in Gansu and Qinghai provinces, where he learned about resettlement work and the construction of temporary housing for quake victims. He said it was a priority to provide quake survivors with facilities for them to keep safe and warm throughout winter. Li Qian urged to shake and reinforce buildings in the affected areas so that residents can return to their homes and hospitals may reopen. The Premier urged for more relief supplies to be sent to the victims in the settlements and for the speeded up construction of temporary houses for those living in tents. The Society for Worldwide Interbanking and Financial Communications records an increase in the use of the Chinese yuan in the international payments. The Chinese currency has positioned itself as the fourth most used currency for global payments, with a share of 4.61% according to the latest transaction data compiled. SWIFT pointed out that the US dollar tops the list of international transactions, followed by the euro, while the Japanese yen remains at a lower level. The yuan's rise reflects Beijing's efforts to promote the use of its national currencies and other currencies than the dollar in trade with Russia, Middle Eastern countries, and Latin America. In Sri Lanka, some 15,000 people were arrested for police forces during an operation called Yuktiya, or Justice in English, to put an end to drug trafficking and criminal activities in the country. According to a statement issued by law enforcement authorities, of the nearly 15,000 people detained, 13,666 were arrested and another 100,000 addicts were sent to compulsory rehabilitation in an institution run by the army. According to the document, security forces seized 440 kilograms of drugs in 1 week, which were taken from the streets of Colombo and other territories. Operation Yuktiya will be interrupted during Christmas holiday season and will restart after next Tuesday. We have now a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience, you can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with TeleSUR. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back from the south. The Canadian mining company First Quantum, after assuring that it would comply with the ruling of Panama's highest court, warns that it will defend its investment in the country. Although they claim they will do so by all legal means, Panamanian workers and farmers denounce the other actions that the company is willing to take. The Canadian mining company indicated that it will shield its investment of $10 billion and the rights in the Panama copper mine. The representative in the Latin American country reported that they have not been able to communicate with the representative of the national executive. However, the Farmers Front Against Mining denounces the complicity of the government with the businessmen. A court in El Salvador ordered the arrest of former President Alfredo Christiani on Saturday. He is accused of covering up those responsible for the massacre of El Mozote in 1981. The military attack, committed with the participation of the United States in the framework of the Civil War, left at least 1,000 dead. The order issued in the city of San Francisco Gotera in the northeast of the country, which requests the provisional arrest of the former president, also involves 8 other people, including former Congressman Ruben Zamora. Human rights activists claim that this is a political persecution for being a critical voice of President Nayib Bukele. The Peruvian Supreme Court of Justice ratified the preventive detention order against former President Pedro Castillo. According to the judicial court, Castillo's defense did not present sufficient arguments to eliminate the conviction elements found against him by public prosecutor's office. Pedro Castillo faces 18-month preventive imprisonment for the alleged crime of rebellion and conspiracy after he announced the Congress dissolution on December 7, 2022, due to the political persecution directed by this entity against him. In addition to this, there is another 36-month preventive jail order for allegedly having committed corruption offenses in abuse of his power. The presidents of Latin America and the Caribbean took advantage of Christmas Eve to express their commitments and wishes for their peoples and the region. Peace has been the most recurring word in the Christmas message of the heads of Latin American states. Their commitments and promises with democracy, development, and prosperity of their nations, as well as the commitment to improve in the coming 2024, accompanied the wish of the good holidays. Brazilian President Lula da Silva recalled how an attempted coup d'etat consolidated a national peace pact in his country. The President of Mexico, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, sent a Christmas message on Sunday wishing happiness to all Mexicans. Through a video on his social media account and accompanied by his wife, Beatriz Gutiérrez, the President emphasized that Christmas Eve is not a night for confrontation, much less for war, but for peace and love in family. López Obrador expressed his wishes of happiness for all citizens, with special emphasis on the children who love this season so much and the grandparents of all Mexican families. In the Vatican on Sunday, Pope Francis appealed for peace during the midnight Christmas Eve Mass held at St. Peter's Basilica. The Pope offered his message to some 6,500 faithful who attended the traditional service. Pope Francis said, "Our hearts are in Bethlehem as the future ideology of war rages in." He never mentioned Israel or Gaza by name, but he made numerous references to violence and war, arguing that justice would not come from a show of force. Meanwhile, in Bethlehem, the city where Jesus was born, Palestinian Tourism Minister Al-Maghazi said Bethlehem is celebrating Christmas with sadness and sorrow because of what's happening in Gaza and in all the West Bank, in all Palestinian territories. Like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on our social media on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.